I spent 23 years building a life I thought was unshakable. 23 years waking up next to the same woman, raising the same son, sitting across from her at breakfast while she scrolled through her phone, and I pretended not to notice how distant her eyes had become. I told myself it was normal, that marriages evolve, that love quiets down after 2 decades and settles into something comfortable, something reliable. I was wrong about all of it. My name is David. I'm 47 years old, and until 6 months ago, I believed I knew exactly who I was. Husband, father, manager at a mid-sized logistics company in Columbus, Ohio. The kind of man who mows the lawn on Saturday mornings, coaches Little League until his knees give out, and still opens a car door for his wife even when she doesn't notice anymore. I thought those things mattered. I thought they added up to something solid. They didn't. If you've ever felt like you were living inside a version of your life that everyone else could see crumbling except you, then you know exactly where I'm coming from. And if you're watching this from somewhere in the world right now, drop a comment and tell me where you are. I want to know I'm not alone in this. Because on the night my son got married, I learned that the life I've been protecting was already gone. I just hadn't been told yet. Before I go any further, do me a favor. If this story resonates with you at all, if you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted, hit that subscribe button. I need to know there are people out there who understand what it feels like to have everything you believed in pulled out from under you in a single moment. And check the description box below. There are more stories like this. Real stories. Raw stories. You're not going to want to miss them. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. Not the wedding, not the disaster, but the weeks leading up to it, when I was still pretending everything was fine. My son, Andrew, met a girl named Rebecca 2 years ago. Sweet kid, accountant, laughed at my jokes even when they weren't funny. The kind of daughter-in-law you hope for. When Andrew told us they were getting engaged, my wife Lauren smiled in that polite, measured way she perfected over the years and said all the right things. But I saw it, the flicker of something else behind her eyes. Annoyance, maybe, or boredom. I didn't push it. I never did. The wedding planning consumed the next 18 months. Lauren took charge of everything. The venue, the flowers, the seating chart. She spent hours on the phone with caterers and florists, her voice light and animated in a way it never was when she talked to me. I told myself she was just excited, that this was what mothers do when their only child gets married. I convinced myself it was a good thing, that maybe this event would bring us closer again. God, I was naive. The wedding itself was beautiful. Small ceremony, about 80 guests, held at a restored barn outside the city. Andrew looked terrified and happy in equal measure. Rebecca glowed. I stood next to Lauren during the vows and reached for her hand out of habit. She let me hold it for exactly 4 seconds before pulling away to dab at her eyes with a tissue. I told myself she was emotional. I told myself a lot of things. The reception dinner was held in the same venue. Long wooden tables arranged in a U-shape, Edison bulbs strung overhead. The whole place smelling like eucalyptus and roasted chicken. I was seated at the head table, right next to Lauren, with Andrew and Rebecca to my left. Across from me sat Rebecca's parents, a couple I'd met a handful of times. Nice people, quiet, and next to them, in a seat I didn't remember being part of the original seating chart, was a man I'd never seen before. His name was Tom, or maybe it was Tim. I don't remember now because at the time, he didn't matter. He was just another guest. Mid-40s, decent suit, the kind of guy who looks like he sells insurance or manages a sales team. Unremarkable, forgettable, except Lauren kept glancing at him. It was subtle at first. A quick look during the speeches. A faint smile when he raised his glass. I noticed, but I didn't notice, if that makes sense. My brain registered it the way you register a bird flying past your window. There, then gone. It wasn't until halfway through dinner, when Lauren excused herself to use the restroom, and he stood up 2 minutes later to do the same, that something cold and sharp settled in my chest. I didn't follow them. I didn't make a scene. I just sat there, fork halfway in my mouth, and felt the edges of my reality start to peel back. They came back separately. Lauren first, her cheeks flushed, her lipstick freshly applied. Then him, 5 minutes later, adjusting his tie. No one else seemed to notice. Or maybe they did, and were just better at pretending than I was. The speeches started. Andrew's best man told a story about a fishing trip gone wrong. Rebecca's maid of honor cried through her entire toast. And then it was my turn. I stood up, glass in hand, and looked at my son. I told him I was proud of him, that I loved him. That marriage was the hardest and best thing I'd ever done. I meant every word, even though I was starting to suspect that last part was a lie. Lauren didn't look at me once during my speech. She looked at Tom, and that's when I knew. I didn't know the details yet. Didn't know how long it had been going on, or how serious it was, or how many lies I'd swallowed over the months or years leading up to this moment. But I knew, the way you know when you touch a hot stove. Instant, undeniable, painful. I sat back down. Lauren reached over and squeezed my hand. She smiled at me, the same smile she'd given me 1,000 times before, and said, "That was lovely, David." I looked into her eyes and saw a stranger. Dinner continued. Plates were cleared. Dessert was served. I pushed a piece of wedding cake around my plate and tried to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. Confront her? Wait until we got home? Pretend I didn't notice? I've never been good at confrontation. I'm the guy who apologizes when someone else bumps into me. The guy who lets things slide because it's easier than making waves. But this wasn't something I could let slide. I was still trying to decide what to do when Lauren stood up. She tapped her fork against her glass. The sound sharp and clear, cutting to the laughter and music. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at her. She smiled that same faint, distant smile, and my stomach dropped. "I have something I need to say," she began. And that's when my life ended. Lauren stood there, lit by those Edison bulbs, and for a second, I thought maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe she was just going to give a toast, thank the guests, say something sweet about Andrew and Rebecca. I wanted to be wrong so badly it hurt. But then she looked at me, and I saw the truth in her eyes. "I need to be honest," she said, her voice steady, almost rehearsed. "I've been carrying something for a long time, and I can't carry it anymore." The room was so quiet, I could hear the sound of someone's chair creaking across the way. Andrew looked confused. Rebecca's mother put a hand over her mouth. I sat frozen, gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles went white. "I love my family," Lauren continued. And there was something almost robotic about the way she spoke, like she'd practiced this in front of a mirror. "I love Andrew. I'm so proud of the man he's become. But I can't keep pretending. I can't do this anymore." She paused, and the silence stretched out unbearable. "I've met someone else." The words landed like a grenade in the middle of the room. I felt the air leave my lungs. Andrew's face went pale. Rebecca grabbed his hand. And Lauren, my wife of 23 years, turned and looked directly at Tom. He didn't flinch, didn't look surprised. He just sat there, calm as anything, and gave her a small nod. That's when I understood. This wasn't a confession. It was a declaration. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was announcing her exit. "I'm sorry," she said, though she wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking at Andrew. "I know this isn't the time or place, but I couldn't keep lying. I couldn't keep pretending. I need to be happy. I need to live my life." Her voice cracked on that last part, and for a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I looked at my son, and I saw the devastation in his eyes, and any sympathy I might have had evaporated. If you've ever had someone you love twist a knife just to make sure you feel it, you know what I'm talking about. And if you're still watching, if you haven't clicked away in disgust or disbelief, then please hit that subscribe button. Share this story. Check the description box for more like it, because what happened next, no one saw coming. Not even me. The room erupted, not immediately, but in waves. First a murmur, then raised voices, then Andrew standing up so fast his chair tipped backward and clattered to the floor. "Mom, what the hell are you doing?" he said, his voice shaking with anger and confusion. Lauren's face softened. "Andrew, honey, I didn't want to..." "You didn't want to what? Ruin my wedding? Destroy our family? You couldn't have waited one more day." Rebecca was crying now. Quiet, shocked tears. Her parents looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. And me? I just sat there, silent, still, like I was watching it happen to someone else. Lauren tried to reach for Andrew, but he stepped back, shaking his head. Don't. Just don't. She turned to me then, and I saw something in her face I hadn't seen in years. Guilt. Real raw guilt. David, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I laughed. I didn't mean to. It just came out sharp and bitter, and it startled her. You're sorry, I repeated, and my voice sounded strange to my own ears. Calm. Too calm. You're sorry. I stood up, slowly, reached into the inside pocket of my suit jacket, and pulled out a plain white envelope. I'd been carrying it for 3 days, waiting for the right moment. I didn't think it would be this moment, but life has a funny way of deciding things for you. I slid the envelope across the table toward Lauren. What is this? She asked, her voice uncertain now, the confidence from a moment ago starting to crack. Open it, I said quietly. She hesitated, glancing at Tom, who looked just as confused as she did. Then she picked up the envelope, opened it, and pulled out the contents. I watched her face change, watched the color drain, watched her eyes go wide, then narrow, then fill with something close to panic. David, she whispered. Yeah, I said. Surprise. Tom leaned over, tried to see what was in the envelope. Lauren pulled it away from him, her hands trembling now. You had me followed? I had you investigated. I corrected. There's a difference. 3 months earlier, when I'd started to suspect something was wrong, I'd hired a private investigator. A guy named Sam, former cop, no nonsense, discreet. I told him I needed to know the truth, whatever it was. He delivered it 2 weeks before the wedding, and I'd spent every day since deciding what to do with it. The envelope contained copies of text messages, photos, bank statements, everything Lauren thought she'd hidden, every lie she thought she'd gotten away with. How long has this been going on? I asked, my voice still unnervingly calm. She didn't answer, just stared at the papers in her hands like they might catch fire. 14 months, I said, answer my own question. 14 months, Lauren. You started seeing him while I was working 60-hour weeks to pay for this wedding, while I was helping Andrew pick out rings and venues and flowers, while I was lying awake at night wondering why you wouldn't touch me anymore. Tears were streaming down her face now, but I couldn't tell if they were real or just reflex. And you, I said, turn to Tom. You've got some nerve showing up here. Sitting at my son's wedding, eating the food I paid for, smiling at me like we're friends. Tom opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. Don't, I said. I don't want to hear it. I looked back at Lauren. The house is in my name. The car you've been driving? Leased under my name. The credit card you've been using to buy him gifts? Yeah, I froze it this morning. And the joint account? Drained it yesterday. Every penny. Her face went from white to red. You can't do that. That's illegal. Actually, I said, and I felt something cold and sharp settle into place. It's not. Ohio's a dual property state. Sweetheart, I'm entitled to protect marital assets when I have evidence of infidelity. My lawyer made that very clear. The room was dead silent now. Everyone was staring, some in shock, some in horror. A few, I'd like to think, in quiet admiration. You've been planning this, Lauren said, her voice barely audible. I've been surviving this. I corrected. There's a difference. I picked up my glass, still half full of champagne, and raised it. Congratulations, Andrew and Rebecca, I said, my voice carrying across the room. I'm sorry your mother decided tonight was the night to blow up her life. But I want you to know, son, that you're going to be fine. You're going to have a beautiful marriage, and you're going to do it without the kind of poison that's been eating away at ours. I drained the glass, set it down, and walked out. I didn't look back. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes before I could convince my hands to stop shaking enough to turn the key. The barn was still lit up behind me, glowing like a lantern against the dark Ohio sky, and I could hear the muffled chaos inside. Voices raised, doors slamming, someone crying. Probably Rebecca. Probably Andrew. Probably everyone except me, because I'd used up every tear I had weeks ago when I first saw those text messages. You want to know what they said? The messages? I can't stop thinking about you. He doesn't see me the way you do. I've never felt this alive. Standard affair cliches, the kind of thing you'd roll your eyes at in a bad movie, except they were real and they were about me, about my marriage, about the life I thought we'd built together. Sam, the investigator, had handed me a folder thick enough to choke on, and I'd sat in my office after hours, door locked, and read every word, every lie, every secret hotel room, every working late excuse that was actually a rendezvous with Tom. 14 months. Over a year of my life spent living in a lie I didn't even know existed. I finally started the car and drove. Not home. I couldn't go home. Not yet. I drove to the lake, the one about 30 miles outside the city, where I used to take Andrew when he was a kid. We'd fish off the dock, not catching much, just sitting in the sun and talking about nothing important. Back when things were simple. Back when I thought I understood how the world worked. I parked by the water and stared out at the darkness. My phone was buzzing nonstop in my pocket, but I ignored it. I knew what it was. Andrew, Rebecca, maybe even Lauren, though I doubted she'd have the guts to call. Not after what I'd just done. What I'd done. God. When you say out loud, it sounds cruel, doesn't it? Exposing her like that, in front of everyone at our son's wedding. I replayed it 1,000 times in my head, and part of me wonders if I should feel guilty, if I should regret it. I don't. Maybe that makes me a bad person. Maybe it makes me vindictive. But you know what? I don't care. Because for the first time in 14 months, I wasn't the one lying. I wasn't the one pretending. I wasn't the one sneaking around, betraying vows, destroying the foundation of everything we built. That was her. And if she wanted to make her announcement in front of 80 witnesses, then she got to live with the consequences in front of 80 witnesses. Fair's fair. If you've ever been in a situation where you had to choose between taking the high road and taking a road that actually gives you some kind of justice, drop a comment and let me know what you did, because I'm still not sure if I made the right call. And while you're at it, check the description box below for more stories like this. Real people, real betrayals, real fallout. You want to see what happens next. I stayed at the lake until almost 2 in the morning. When I finally pulled my phone out, I had 43 missed calls and more text messages than I could count. Most were from Andrew, a few from Rebecca, none from Lauren, which didn't surprise me. She was probably too busy trying to explain herself to Tom. Or maybe she'd already left with him. I didn't know. Didn't care. There was one voicemail from Andrew. Just one. I almost didn't listen to it, but something made me press play. His voice was thick, raw, like he'd been crying. Dad, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to think. Mom's gone. She left with that guy. She didn't even apologize. Not really. She just kept saying she had to do what was right for her. Like we don't matter. Like I don't matter. There was a long pause, and I heard him take a shaky breath. I'm not mad at you. I don't know if you were right or wrong, but I get it. I think I get it. I need some time. Rebecca and I are going to go stay with her parents for a few days. We can't deal with this right now. I'll call you when I'm ready. I love you, Dad. The message ended, and I sat there in the dark, phone still pressed in my ear, and felt something inside me crack open. Not guilt, not regret, just grief. Deep, bone-deep grief for the family we used to be, for the son who just had his wedding destroyed, for the life that was never coming back. I drove home. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, and for a moment, I thought maybe Lauren had come back. Maybe she'd realized what she'd done. Maybe she'd be sitting at the kitchen table, waiting to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, to try to put the pieces back together. But the house was empty, cold, silent. I walked through the rooms, turning on lights, and it felt like walking through a museum of a life that used to exist. Her coffee mug in the sink, her jacket on the back of the chair, the book she'd been reading on the nightstand, bookmark halfway through. Everything exactly as it had been that morning, but different, hollow, I went into the bedroom and saw that her side of the closet was untouched. She hadn't packed, hadn't planned to leave tonight. She thought she could make her announcement, drop her bomb, and then just, what? Come home? Sleep in the same bed? Pretend we'd figure it out? I sat on the edge of the bed and laughed. Actually laughed, because the absurdity of it was almost too much to process. She wanted out. She wanted to be happy. She wanted to live her life. Fine. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. Yes, at 2:30 in the morning. Yes, I woke him up. And yes, I told him to file the papers first thing Monday morning. Divorce. Irreconcilable differences. Infidelity. The whole package. I wasn't going to give her the chance to come crawling back, to try to manipulate me into forgiving her, to spin some narrative about how this was all a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. And she made it. By the time the sun came up, I'd made a list. Things to do, accounts to close, locks to change, a future to build that didn't include her. And you know what the strangest part was? I felt free. For the first time in over a year, I felt like I could breathe, like the weight I'd been carrying, the one I didn't even realize was there, had finally lifted. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't need to. I sat at the kitchen table with a pot of coffee and watched the sky turn from black to gray to pink. I thought about what comes next. Not for her, not for us, but for me, because this story isn't over yet. 3 weeks after the wedding, Lauren's lawyer sent me a letter. She wanted to sit down and talk, wanted to mediate, wanted to, in her words, handle this like adults. I threw the letter in the trash. You don't get to blow up someone's life and then demand a civilized conversation. You don't get to humiliate your husband and devastate your son at his wedding and then expect everyone to just sit down over coffee and work things out like rational people. That's not how this works. My lawyer handled everything, filed the divorce papers, started the asset division, subpoenaed the bank records and text messages. Ohio law was on my side, and for once in this entire nightmare, I had leverage. Lauren had gotten sloppy. She'd used joint accounts to pay for hotels. She'd used our credit card to buy gifts for him. She'd left a digital trail a mile wide, and every bit of it was admissible. Her lawyer tried to argue that I'd acted in bad faith by freezing the accounts. My lawyer pointed out that I'd acted in self-defense after discovering evidence of ongoing infidelity and financial misconduct. The judge agreed. I got the house. I got the car. I got 70% of our savings. She got to start over with nothing but her bad decisions and the man she left me for. Funny how that works. Andrew didn't speak to his mother for 2 months. Not a single call. Not a single text. She'd reached out, apparently. Lauren's sister told me that much. But he ignored her. Rebecca told me later that Andrew had spent the first week after the wedding barely eating, barely sleeping, just staring at the wall and trying to process what had happened. She said he felt guilty, like somehow he caused it by getting married, by forcing the issue, by making Lauren confront whatever dissatisfaction had been eating at her.